Hi knitty friends, I am up at the snow and I just had to show you where I've been knitting today. I came out just to get a little bit of a glimpse of it for you, and I have just sat here and just enjoyed all the sounds. Mostly birds, the chairlift and some very happy skiers in the background. Bit too closed in for us today to take our little learner guy up, so it's a chill day today. I'll show you the view. Hello, and welcome to the Knitting Mail podcast, episode 3. I'd like to begin this episode by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land, the Wadawurrung people, and I would like to pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. On that note, this week, my son and I went on a lovely excursion with our school to a new exhibition in Geelong, and I'll pop it up here. I thought it was very much worth sharing. A Indigenous family at our school are actually running the exhibition. It's called Keepers of the Flame, and so it's a beautiful one. It's worth taking the kids on the school holidays to enjoy it. Lachlan and I both spent a lot of time reading all of the stories that go with all the artworks. I wanted to buy every single one of them. Maybe one day I will be able to buy one of these beautiful artworks by Norm or Nikki. But the details are here if you're interested in checking it out. We made it to episode 3, and with only 2 weeks in between. If you have been following me along, there was a huge gap between episode 1 and 2. So thank you so much for hanging in there with me. And hello to all of the new subscribers from the last video. Thank you so much for watching. All of your comments gave me the biggest boost, so much encouragement. And here I am. I believe that the last episode I forgot to say that along the bottom of the video you should be able to find chapters. If you're interested in a particular project, you can use the chapters below to skip the intro and get to the projects you're interested in. I often do that when I'm just trying to find who on YouTube has made this jumper so that I can see it on somebody, which helps me get an idea as to whether I want to knit it for my body. I have one FO-ish, 2 whips and 2 acquisitions. So let's get straight into it. My first FO today-ish is my smoke jumper by, I'll get this correct, Anka Streak. Apologies, Anka, if I get your name wrong every time. This was a love-hate relationship while I was knitting it. If you watched episode 2, you will have gotten all the details on that. However, I am pleased to announce that once I blocked it and wore it, I absolutely love it. My ish next to the FO is because I do need to rip it back to the body increases and knit it again. However, it won't be too bad. I know that I love it, so it should fly, I hope. So let's get to the details of it so I don't forget any of them. Go onto my project page. I've knitted in this beautiful Polworth yarn by Tarndie or Tarndie. Hopefully you can see the beautiful heathered. This is an undyed natural taupe. 100% Polworth. Let me get the details for you. 8-ply DK, 192 meters per 100 grams. And I bought a kilo of it. I bought 10 balls. They offered it to me. I bought it at the Bendigo Wool and Sheep Show last year. They offered me to buy a cone of it, which I kind of wished I did so that I have a cone of Tarndie wool. However, this has been more versatile. When I first started the yoke, I could just take my one ball and my yoke in a small project bag with me to school, things like that. But if you get a chance to knit with this, it is the most squishy, round, soft, 100% wool that I've knitted with. It's just beautiful. It says Tarndie Court. They are only 50 minutes from me here in Geelong, Victoria. So it's a bit of a special one to me. I have 2 balls left, and I believe that my swatch and the leftover wool from my swatch is the 3rd ball. So I'll be able to unravel that, give it a wash, and cake it up again. So I'll have 3 balls to do a new project with. Mitts, beanies, cows, something. I am only wearing a singlet underneath this, and for me, this is next to skin soft. It's just beautiful, which I suspect in that sense it may pill a bit, but I will update you when I've worn it for a little while. The problem I came across was clearly my mind I just could not get my mind around, oh, hold on a tick. Apologies, I thought that was my son's school calling. What was I up to with my increases? The increases aren't confusing in themselves. What I found confusing is how to do the increases while keeping in this beautiful stitch pattern. I noticed in the comments for this pattern, a few other people had the same problem. So somehow in my mind, I thought it was a good idea to just push on the way I was doing it. That was not a good idea at all. Because now I have to re-knit parts of it. Hopefully I can put a video up of how the jumper's sitting on me and the ease, and at the end of the jumper, hopefully you'll see the very obvious problem that I've managed to create out of ignoring my confusion and pushing on. So I'll just rip back and knit down. In the end, there's a little bit too much fabric, a little bit too much ease anyway. So what my plan is to rip back to the increases and not do the increases at all and just stick with the pattern and work straight down. I really don't need the extra inches around the bottom of the jumper. Hopefully you can see that here. So I have plans for the next time I make a contiguous shoulder. This particular pattern, I didn't realize when I bought it, but this particular pattern wasn't very size inclusive. And I do think that that shows in the recommendation of the ease and the choosing of your size. I hope that makes sense. In her most recent patterns, there are a larger size range, and I suspect that they will probably be graded better for each of the size ranges. In my case with my jumper, I'm a 43-inch full bust, and I knit it for the 43-inch full bust. However, what I found is when I tried it on, I found there was just too much extra fabric in here for the particular construction needs. When I look at photos of how this construction is sitting on people, it's a little bit tidier to your body up at the top, which I suspect is why there's body increases in the first place. However, I think I needed to size down. So my plans are that I think if I knit a contiguous sleeve again, is that I think that I will go from my upper bust, which is 41 inches, which is the size down in this pattern. So a size 4. I did a size 5. So I suspect that I chose the wrong size to start with. I wasn't confident to choose a size 41 bust when I have a size 43 though. Also, I have checked my gauge on the actual jumper just in case as I got knitting and as I relaxed into the jumper a bit. You know, sometimes you get into the rhythm of a jumper and your gauge opens up a little bit, but my gauge is exactly the same as my swatch. So I definitely need to size down, which I never thought I would probably do with a jumper because I like the ease. However, this construction, as you know, I'm on a construction journey. I think that with contiguous, I will probably size down. And then when I get past my bust, check to see whether I want the increases or not in the waist area, if that makes sense. I'll check my notes to see if I'm missing anything on this jumper. Tarn worn cord. I used the 3.5 millimeter recommended needles, and it did get me my 22 stitches. I did not get row gauge, which is pretty typical for me. I seem to get stitch gauge but not row gauge. In a top down, it's usually not much of a problem. However, that might have created some of the problem here too. It wasn't that far off. It was only one row off, but it does add up, doesn't it? So maybe that's something else I need to explore, if that makes sense. And that's about it. I didn't write a lot of notes on this, as you know, because I was falling out of love with it a little bit, but now I just love it. The sleeves are beautiful. I did not go down a needle size because I wanted these to be like fingerless mitts, cozy and not too tight, and it's worked out exactly how I wanted it to. It's got the little thumb holes, so you can see I've just knit straight to there. Did I modify? No, I didn't modify the sleeves. The cast on here is a long tail cast on. I cast it off here in pattern because I didn't want it to be too stretchy, because I didn't go down a needle size here, and that's worked out really nice, and I feel like they match well enough. However, the recommended cast off for the bind off for the body was a knit one, purl one bind off, which was really interesting because it's a knit 3 purl one. I don't think it looks bad. I think it's nice, but I think that when I do it again, I'll probably do a either in pattern to match this one or a tubular. Can I do a tubular with 3-1? Probably not. I'll probably cast off in pattern. It doesn't look bad. I do like it, but I'm redoing it anyway, so I think that I'll probably bind off in pattern. Comment down below why you think this bind off, if you know why this bind off was chosen for 3x1. It's interesting. I'm sure there's a reason behind it, but I found it wants to lift a little bit. Anyway, I think that that's all for this jumper. So happy I stuck with it. Really glad I didn't rip it out, especially when it's in such beautiful wool. Right, on to my next whip, which is the complete opposite of this one. I've loved it when I casted it on, and I've loved it all the way through. And that's my Cable Bay sweater by Pearl Foundry. Here it is. So I've got the body knit up all the way down to the bind off. She needs sleeves. That's the front. And that's the back. Look at those monster cables. I'm in love. So I'll start with the yarn, the magic yarn. I absolutely love this. This is, do I have the actual tag for it? Louie and Lola, as I mentioned in my last episode, and it's their merino possum fingering, 80% merino, 20% possum fur, 425 meters in 100 grams, and it's the color fawn. Hopefully you can read that. Oh, this wool, I absolutely love it. I'm calling it, I don't know, if you're in Australia, you probably know the book called Possum Magic. And if you're outside of Australia, I wonder if you do. Have you read Possum Magic with your children? So I'm calling it Possum Magic. I can't help it because it knits up to so many gauges. So I started off really small and I just increased my needle sizes until I found a fabric that I liked, which actually landed on 4.5 millimeter needles, gave me the 20 stitches. 20 stitches per 4 inch, 10 centimeters that I needed for this jumper. But what's so lovely about it is that it's got so much meterage, so you can knit it at a bigger gauge and it fluffs out beautifully if you don't have as much of it, or if you want a really windproof jumper, you can knit it at a tighter gauge and it sort of becomes a bit more windproof. I really enjoyed it. I do have one swatch here. It's been crumpled up in my bag for a while. These are the larger needles. But, and actually it's done all right being rubbed in the bottom of my bag. I'm really interested to see how this yarn wears and how much it pills. It doesn't shed anywhere near as much as I thought it would. The only time I've noticed it shedding is when I was doing the tubular bind off at the bottom. Other than that, when I'm knitting with it, it's not up in my face. You know how sort of when you're knitting with mohair, you sort of get the fluff all around you. This has not done that for me, at least not in this colour. I'm not sure if different colours would behave differently, but in the fawn, it's been magical, as I say, possum magic. The pattern I'm absolutely in love with. It's one of those ones that I'm like, oh, I might want to do another one at some point. You cast on for the back, you shape the shoulders, which is really nice. And then you pick up for the front. What I will say, the only thing, this pattern has been absolutely incredible, but the only thing, if you're going to knit this, that I found wasn't specified was to make sure when you're picking up, you're going to have this detail and they'll need to match up. So when you're picking up along the back, you're not picking up along the cast on edge. You want to pick up into the V's of the stitches so that your stitches line up nicely. Does that make sense? See how this detail, it needs to run into itself nicely. Whereas if you pick up just along the cast off edge, it'll be slightly offset, which I didn't want. So I picked it up again. I did it twice. See how that just sort of matches all the way. I hope that makes sense. Oh my gosh, though, the rest of this pattern, if you are a chart person, it's got a beautiful chart. If you need it in written, it's got it in written. Everybody is covered. While this monster cable looks really complicated, it's only 3 rows of cables. And it's set so well on the chart that honestly, by the time you've knit the back and the shoulders and started the front, you can memorize it. Sounds impossible when you look at how much detail is across, but it's just mirrored. So it's quite easy to memorize. I hope that makes sense. This pattern was written so nice. It's one of those that you get so much texture, so much bang for your buck, but it doesn't interrupt that lovely knitting rhythm that you can get with a jumper. So once you've joined in the round, it's just bliss. So nice. So the modifications I've made, as I mentioned in my last video, I didn't want the big balloon sleeve, even though it's beautiful. I think that for me and my preferences, I'm going to wear it more if I have a slightly slimmer sleeve. So all I did, because it's a top down drop shoulder, I just modeled it. Hopefully I've got a picture. I've modeled it off my grid lines because I really like where my arm sits and the length of the jumper. So I've modeled those details onto this. So I stopped 3 centimeters earlier and joined in the round than the pattern suggests. So it's, you know, what the armhole would have usually been down there, whereas I'm up here. It's a small detail, but I feel like it will make a difference for my preferences. Katrina was lovely. I messaged her about it and she said, absolutely, that's what we're supposed to be doing as knitters with our patterns. So that was really kind of you, Katrina, if you're watching. But if you do that, remember you need to add the length here. Make sure that this length is the length you want between underarm and hem, if that makes sense. So it's been absolutely magic all the way until I got to the tubular. It wasn't bad, but if you're going to do a tubular bind off, I don't remember what Pearl Foundry has in their actual pattern. I'll put it here on the screen because I won't be able to open the pattern from here because it's on my phone, what bind off was recommended. I just automatically did a tubular bind off because that's what I wanted. But boy, did it take me a long time. It looks lovely. I think it's worked out really nice. A lovely neat edge on it. However, because of the possum fur, I suspect, the fibers bound together as I was pulling my needle through for the tubular bind off. What I might do is I might quickly flick to a video showing you what I mean because it's hard to describe, and then I'll come back. Hello everyone. Just thought I'd come in and try and show you the issue I've been having with this possum yarn while doing a tubular bind off. Still looks lovely, but it's just taking a bit longer time, so I thought I'd show you how I've dealt with it. It's usually between these two loops that the fibers manage to get themselves all tangled up. And because it's such a light, lofty yarn, it sort of all catches in on itself. So you spend heaps more time organising the tail. And then I don't know if you can see it. You can see it starting here where they're starting to loop together a little bit. So before I go on to the next one, I'll just separate them. They weren't bad. Hopefully I can show you on the back side. Seems to be worse. It's probably the way I'm holding the yarn as I run it through, but can't quite figure that out. Much more yarn management. Then hopefully it'll, yeah, so you can see it on the back there, if it'll focus. See this little spot here? It's just been bound together. So all I've been doing is going through and breaking that loop, and then it's free again. I hope that makes sense. Hopefully that explained it okay. It certainly wasn't going to deter me from doing my tubular bind off because I think it actually looks beautiful in the end, but just beware it might take a little bit of extra time. And I just took that time. I just slowed down. I took that time with my row to get it nice and neat because I knew that I would enjoy the stretch that you get from the tubular bind off. Okay, I think we're up to my next whip. So for my next whip and my final whip, as you know, I'm fairly monogamous. The only reason why I have a second whip is because the cable bay jumper is getting a little bit too big for school pickup. So it was time for another one. And I decided to tackle some of my scraps. If you've been following along, it's sort of the year for me for jumpers and tackling some of my scraps. I'll put a picture up of the scraps that I'm using because they're in my project bags all organized at the moment, but here's a picture of the beautiful Circus Tonic handmade yarn and Louie and Lola yarn and Diablo from Hobbii, not sure how to say that. They were just little scraps that I had, and I thought, what can I make with them? I spent more time on Ravelry, I feel like, with scrappy projects, trying to find something that fits the amount of grams I have versus the bigger projects, because I have, you know, a proper amount of yarn for those projects. But I ended up coming across, let me get it right, the Midnattsol, I'm saying that wrong, Midnattsol by the Petite Knitter. I'll put a picture up of it here. Mine is going to look quite different because I'm holding the Diablo along with all of the colors, and all of the colors are a little bit closer, not as high contrast, which was intentional. I thought it'd be quite nice to have more of a watercolor color work than the strong contrast. It's a bit hard to see. I've got it in 2 different bags so that I can keep my colors in order. And this is what I have so far. Hopefully you can see that. It's nowhere near as intense as the petite knitters version, but I'm really enjoying it. It's a lovely car knit to have. I'm moving on to the center diamonds now in this goldfinch colorway. It's lovely and soft. I've tried it on, it fits nicely. I don't think I can do it now, I'll lose stitches. But I've just knit a big brim, folded over. There's my floats if you like float TV. Everyone likes to see the floats, right? I was going to try jacquard for my color work, but it's actually not needed. They're really not very big floats. But yeah, this is just a really nice little project to do in the car while I'm waiting for school pickup. And that was a lot smaller than my jumper. Hopefully by the next time I do an episode, this one will be finished and you'll be able to see it. But I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying a little bit of color work after lots of cables and lace. So there's not a lot to say about it really. It's a sweet little hat. I'm going to enjoy wearing it, I think, now that I'm feeling how the fabric was coming up. I was a little bit worried about how the darker yarn was interacting with the lighter Diablo, but I quite like it. It's kind of salt and peppery. I'm really enjoying it. Not much else to say on my project yet because I'm just finishing. Should I put a pom-pom on it? Comment down below. I tend to put pom-poms on my beanies, but not my husband's. But does this one need a pom-pom? Comment down below if you think it does. Okay, so those are all my whips. I am very boring. I usually only have 1 or 2 projects. On to acquisitions. Yes, I'm doing the Stephen West MKAL again this year. I started off saying to myself, probably not this year. This October will be a little bit busier than last year. I'm working more. And then the image, I'll put it here. Then the image comes up, Geogradient. I have not done any gradient work. I've never bought a fade. I've never done, any gradient stuff. So that piqued my interest, and I thought the amount that I learned from last year's MKAL was just phenomenal. I'm so confident in picking up stitches now. I'm so confident in I-cord edges, and considering I've never done a gradient and I've never bought a fade, and the geometric pattern appeals, it's probably going to be a very intense galactic knit, which probably isn't my particular style. But what I love about it is, one, it's a mystery, it's a challenge, and it's just this big community of people who are knitting together, which is what really draws me to it. So I chose my colors. I will do a whole video and make a nice little playlist of all of my MKAL videos, so that if you're interested in the MKAL, you can watch along and follow along with me. But if you're not interested, I'll still upload some episodes along the way as well. But my colors, so I was so excited. We were at the snow, we're having a wonderful time, and I realized all of the colors will be being released. So I was watching very carefully to all the Australian beautiful designers. I'll put a picture up here of all of the different Australian indie dyers that were putting up kits. Hopefully they can sit here while I'm chatting about them. I was really interested in some from Black Wattle Yarns. I was really interested in some from Ash and Eve. And then Karina from Louie and Lola put up her kits, and I fell in love with one of those. So yes, I've ended up with a Louie and Lola kit for this year's MKAL. It is the winter set. Love it. So it is 100% superwash merino single ply, which I I knit with a single ply for my golden fern shawl, and that, I want to say hedgehog fibers, but I've never used this base from Louie and Lola before. Da, 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 da. I went with the blues. Did you expect it? I didn't. My thoughts were, as I did last year, I chose colors that I felt I could wear and I'd enjoy wearing. And these colors with my eyes, will I do this? I feel like these colors with a nice pair of jeans, no matter how crazy the shawl is, I will bundle it up around me and I will love wearing it. And I just thought the way that these colors have been dyed, I just fell in love. It's like smoky, moody blues. Side note, if you ever notice that I get colors wrong, it's because I am colorblind. Most of the time it doesn't impact me, but when it comes to nuances between colors or things like seeing the red bottle brushes in the trees outside, I do not see them until I'm right up close. Sometimes I will say something's olivey when it's actually brown. It's a really interesting thing. I don't seem to have trouble matching colors and making a nice palette, but I definitely get colors wrong sometimes. So I'm seeing a moody, smoky blue fade set. And I feel like this one's more on the silver side. Let me know if I'm wrong. But I'm so excited to knit with these. They're just beautiful. And I'm really looking forward to knitting alongside any of you who might be doing it, or any of you who might just be watching this crazy lady trying to keep up with 4 clues over 1 month with a busy life. We'll see how we go. I may be a little bit slower this year than I was last year, but we'll see how it goes. You never know. I might just have way too many late nights and regret every single one of them. We'll see how we go. Comment down below, are you doing the MKAL? Or are you like, no way, I will see how it turns out. I completely understand that. It is an unknown. I am somebody who, I enjoy puzzle boxes, I enjoy riddles. So I think that's why I enjoy the challenge of the MKAL. I have one more acquisition, which is last episode, I think you might remember that I bought the new color for Bendigo wool, which is their deep olive. Fell in love with it. Can't wait to make something with it. However, I was thinking about a raglan, and then which led to a Ravelry deep dive of all over lace, because it is a solid color. There's no tone in it. There's no heather in it. And I thought, oh, I'm not sure if there's enough interest in it for just a basic straight raglan, like the Brooklyn raglan light, I want to say I was going to knit. So that led me to lace. And I was super excited about a few different patterns for an all over lace garment, still in a raglan. However, then I realized this will be coming up just after I've finished my MKAL Geogradient shawl, and I have a feeling that I might be ready for some stockinette in the round. So on Facebook Marketplace in our local area, a man was putting up a bunch of he was destashing, and he destashed this beautiful, I'll put the label up here, baby suri and silk. It's hard to see the color there, isn't it? It's a black with a bronze, I want to say, silk, mulberry silk. So it is, let me get this right, Mel, 74% baby suri alpaca and 26% mulberry silk. He was selling it for a steal, and I thought the two of these combined would make a really beautiful fabric, which led me to, I think, don't hold me to it, but I think what I would like to make with these two is a Cumulus blouse. So I'm still getting a raglan, but it'll be stockinette in the round as a lovely soothing project after the MKAL. That's my plan so far. We'll see what happens in November as to whether that actually comes true or not. But I feel like those two together will make a lovely deep green, fluffy, fuzzy jumper. Apparently I'm on a fuzzy phase between this guy and buying this brushed alpaca. Different fiber, slightly different fuzz. It's almost got more of a curliness to it, not a boucle, but it's got a bit of curliness to it. Hopefully you can see that. So I think that's it for today's episode. Another enormous thank you to everybody who's been watching. I hope today's video has been a little bit shorter. I know last one was a bit of a giant one. And hopefully I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. I will definitely see you just after the 5th of October for Clue 1 of the West Nids MKAL. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Bye.